All right, I see some of you have logged on already, so welcome. I'm delighted also to see that some of you have already voted. Of course, this is that time of year when we all get ready to make the big choices that we think will have some effect on our collective life. So thanks for that. Um, Actually, in the next week, just so you know, those of you who are part of the Lutheran Church that I'm a part of, they'll be setting up all the voting booths as we get ready to have people come in from the community to do their voting right on our site. So it's going to be an active week in a couple weeks to come. As folks kind of log on today, one of the things that I like to encourage people to do, and you can do this no matter when you kind of log on to these events, is to just let people know that you're here. Say hi, do a shout out, um, reach out to each other if you see somebody you know, connect with them. It is one way, even though we are required to be physically distanced from each other, that we can still be socially connected. And I was reminded of that this week as our family got together to kind of remember a tragic loss that we've had in our family. And, getting all the family together on a Zoom call and reconnecting again and telling stories and being present for each other. These digital formats still allow us a way to um, kind of have a heart for each other and connect our hearts together, whether they be Zoom calls or live events like this. So to help make that happen, it's always good for you to be as present as you can. To show up not just listening to what this conversation might sound like for you, but to be present for it. To be, in a sense, open your heart so that you can feel, the journey we're on collectively. I just think that's so important for us to continue to practice together, even though we have to do it on this digital platform. So thanks for obviously being a part of this experience, no matter when you connect, whether it be live on Sunday morning or sometime during the week or as it's posted up to YouTube. Um, it's just one more way we can link our souls together in some ways to acknowledge that even though we each carry an individual soul, we are together a collective soul, and that matters. That's important. So welcome. Glad you're here today. Some of my reflections today, or the bulk of them, are going to be, they were sort of informed by an article I read in the New York Times, and you can go back and read that article too if you'd like. It was the Thomas Friedman article in his opinion column, and he was talking about thinking about what life might be like or could be like as we move to the other side of this pandemic. And I know we're not through this yet, despite what some of the politicians say, right? We're not through this yet. And so we are required to spend a lot of our energy figuring out how to navigate, sort of this lifestyle within pandemic mode. But we're starting to also see that in the next months and maybe into the summer, maybe spring, we're going to be able to start to re-engage again in more public ways. And Thomas Friedman starts to think about what might life look like for us on the other side of this pandemic, given the experiences we've had and what we've seen as what's most important for us as individuals and a society. Can we capture some of that now and begin to imagine what that might look like as we move forward? And I really like the way that he thought about that, and a couple of things that he brought up that I think are transfer over, so to speak, to our particular focus of what it means to live a spiritual life, was the way he described the portability of certain aspects of our life, the way that they might become more portable so that they can move with you more fluidly as you engage in your future pursuits, given that engagement is probably going to change. So Thomas Friedman talked about the portability of healthcare. That is there a way to make healthcare so portable that it always resides with you, no matter what you do as an individual in the collective? Right? It's not tethered to your employment with a company or some dependent relationship you have, but it moves with you. It's portable. As you decide to change into a different field, it moves with you, and it is present for you throughout your life's trajectory. The same was true with pensions, that your pension, he said, could be portable, that it's de-linked in some way from a lifelong tether to a robust institution, but rather you have a sense of freedom and creativity and flexibility because of the portability of a pension program that moves with you as you mature in age. He also went on to talk about the portability and opportunities for lifelong learning, that education too is going to have to be seen not as a something you accomplish by heading off to college or university or achieving some degree, but that there will be this sort of ongoing requirement for what he thinks of as lifelong learning, and that the early learning experience is to, in a sense, help you orient how to do that throughout your lifespan, so that the skills and experiences you have that might move you into one career, they will only support you for so long, and you will have to find yet another way to manifest your capacity to be operational in the world of commerce or employment. So this sort of capacity for more fluidity, Thomas Friedman thinks, will generate more entrepreneurial capacity that will generate or stimulate our economic engine. That's his idea. And it's not a bad idea. But as I was reading that idea, I thought about, what about spirituality? Right? Are we learning in this time how our spirituality too might have more portability, might reside somehow more deeply in our personal experience, that it too might not be so dependent on our link to institutional religion or a traditional denomination, but that it has this sort of fluidity to it that can move with us as we move, that can mature with us as we mature, that can change with us as circumstances change, that can be more responsive as we engage the world and face the challenges that are in front of us. Can spirituality have that kind of portability? And so that's what I wanted to explore with you a little bit today. You know, we've talked about being present for the moment and being spiritually present for the moment, how important that is. We've talked, I think it was last week, about how to live with compassion and justice so that the relationships you experience in the moment might move you to more just behaviors in the world. But today I want to think about sort of this generative capacity that is possible when your spirituality is present for you all the time in every moment. And that you maybe begin to see that all that is sacred is available to you in every moment. That it's not like you go through your week and then show up in church on Sunday morning, that there's almost a ubiquitous nature to your spirituality that informs just everything that you do. Could it be that portable? So let's take some time today to kind of explore that and see how that feels to you. And thanks for Thomas Friedman for that article, kind of stimulating that thought for today. Hopefully it will kind of guide us into this meditative time for today. So as you're getting settled in and kind of know the theme for today, I thought let's just start with a simple practice. And that is, I would invite you to kind of cup your hands and hold them close to you. And I want to just take a minute to take a couple of deep breaths and kind of arrive here together. And then to imagine what it's like in the palm of your own hands to hold all that is sacred in a way that sort of travels with you. almost to think about that line in the Lord's Prayer in the Christian tradition, give us this day our daily bread. That you, in a sense, hold the sacred like daily bread, like something that is intrinsically present for you in every waking moment. Your daily experience of the sacred held in the palm of your hands. So cup your hands or hold your hands out or just imagine your hands and just take a couple of cleansing breaths this morning. And let's just guide ourselves into a moment of having capacity to imagine the portability of our own spiritual lives. Maybe just let your body and your soul and maybe even your heartbeat kind of rest in the quiet of your open hands today. Imagine for a moment, like the parable of the mustard seed, that even in the smallness of your hands in grace, you are able to hold all of that eternal promise of wisdom and grace and compassion. That it is, in a sense, manifest inside of your experience of life, tenderly held in the simplicity of your own two hands. Imagine the complexity and wonder, the mystery and the awe of all that is present with you, even in this little moment that we share. So that in some way, its heartbeat beats along with yours in each and every moment of our life together. And take one more cleansing breath, feeling yourself connected to the gift of life this morning as we continue together. All right. Amen to that, huh? I gotta admit, I do enjoy those moments because they calm me down too, and we all need a little bit of that in our lives. I wanted to continue with this theme, starting with the study we're doing on Mark's Gospel that happens every Wednesday at 11:30. You're always welcome to join us for that in a Zoom call. But one of the things we discover in Mark's Gospel is that, for Mark anyway, is he, in a sense, Mark kind of lays out for us the life of Jesus in this longer narrative. What we discover is that Jesus ultimately discovers the way in which God is woven into the fabric of society, the way in which God is revealing God's self, the way in which God's graciousness is manifest, all of that Jesus, in a sense, stumbles into that, not in the institutional religion of his day, but rather finds that in his journey along the path of life. Mark literally, in his gospel, creates a travel narrative in which Jesus now in the middle of the gospel is moving from town to town, one step at a time, walking with his followers of the day and teaching them, not teaching them abstract dogmatic theory, but teaching them to see how the sacred is exploding, present, engaged in the relationships and the moments that they share along the journey. And of course, that journey is then codified and celebrated in the institutional church. So I don't want to imply that It's not present in the institutional church, but clearly what we discover, particularly in Mark's gospel, and I think in some of the other gospels too, is that the origins of the experience of, if you will, as Luther liked to call it, sort of the living God, the God who is actually engaged with world, is in the everyday, right? The everyday relationships with the peasant or the fisher folk or the vineyard keeper or the landowner or the workers or the disenfranchised or over dinner or in the mustard seed. Over and over again, we're seeing in our own text, the sacred text of the Christian community, this way in which sacred is fully present in every moment, is portable. And there's something beautiful about the disclosure that happens if you're able to have eyes open to see the sacred in that portable moment, or to hear the voice of God inside of each moment. In fact, Jesus in the text uses that metaphor all the time. Those who have eyes to see, let them see what's happening. Those who have ears to hear, let them hear. There is a call, I believe, to this capacity for each of us in our own path of life, one step at a time, to be engaged by the sacred. Now, I do think that needs to be informed by the experience of others as they are having that experience, and by the traditions that we carry with us, one generation after the other. But the real energy of the spiritual life is literally in the palm of your hands. I think the same is true with, before I was going to talk a little bit about how that happens too for the Buddha, because I think it happens in other religious traditions as well. But, let me tell you about that. So in Buddhism, it's the same kind of example, right? The person we know of as the Buddha now started out in a place of total privilege. And inside that place of privilege, the Buddha did not reach enlightenment inside of that place of privilege. It wasn't until he opened the doorway to exit privilege and enter into the actual experience of real suffering in the world, what the real human experience is with all of its challenges. In that moment, the Buddha begins to awaken to the way in which he sees holy, if you will, in the world. That's when the awakening happens. The awakening happens when he is on the road experiencing the real lives of people in everyday contexts. And that's when this spiritual insight begins to flood over him. He sits under the Bodhi tree and begins to construct, if you will, the Buddhism that we know today. In both cases, hopefully you get this sense of what's possible if, in fact, we take seriously this idea that spirituality is deeply portable, that it's with us all the time. This past week, I had a great conversation with a couple of friends of mine, and I asked permission from one of them to be able to share this story. But I was with a guy in the community, you might know him, his name is Papa John. Papa John's famous for his chicken coops, his rabbits, his commitment to the environment, been active with Sustainable Lafayette. Great character and soul. And we were having just a little time together with another friend of ours, and we were talking about the book by Desmond Tutu and the Dalai Lama. And that book was called The Book of Joy, Lasting Happiness in a Changing World. The Book of Joy, Lasting Happiness in a Changing World. And for the Dalai Lama and Desmond Tutu, they both felt like joy is different than just finding happiness. Joy is a state of mind or a state of the heart that is, in a sense, not above, but sort of beyond the capacity of of distinct experiences to have an influence on it, so that it rises, it exists outside of that, so that you can always be filled with this sense of joy despite the circumstances. And both of them have found a way to both live into that and explore that and to be present for that, and then to live out from that in lives of justice and compassion, right? So that's what we were talking about. And we were all in the little group thinking, how important that is for our time, given the circumstances we're living in. And then one of the people in the conversation said, well, it turns out that the Dalai Lama gets up like at, I don't know, it's 2 or 3 in the morning, and before he starts every day, he engages in 4 hours of meditation. 4 hours every day of meditation before he starts his day. Now, that's pretty aggressive, right? Now, I was thinking, my God, there's no way I can do that. And it turns out that Desmond Tutu felt a little bit intimidated by that too, because he only does 3 hours of silent meditation before he does his day. So this idea of kind of that spiritual practice of being able to be that focused for 4 hours before you even begin your journey into the day just seems beyond the pale for most of us, right? So I think I asked Papa John, so what do you do to kind of foster, if you're not meditating for 4 hours a day, what do you do to kind of foster your sense of spirituality so that you have it integrated into your day? And he literally started to unfold what I think is exactly what we're talking about, this capacity to have portability in his own spiritual practice. And he said, for me, I engage like every moment with this sense of deep gratitude or thankfulness. And that simple capacity is integrated into all the moments that I have during my day. So it's not like I'm setting aside this block of time to sustain my spirit. I am fully integrating that into every moment, so that when I walk on a fall day and I hear the leaves crunching beneath my feet, I pause and I say thank you. And in that moment of gratitude, I kind of bring a different heart to the experience. The same holds true when he's checking out at the grocery store and he looks into the eyes of the checker and he says he's filled with gratitude for their work so that he can do what he does and their time, and he engages that person out from that moment of gratitude and thankfulness of the relationship that they've having for that just brief moment in time. He has that spirit of gratitude as he harvests eggs from his chickens every morning. He has that spirit of gratitude even in moments of frailty, right? I was struck by this moment. He said, he gets up and he struggles sometimes to walk as well as he would want, right? He gets up, he gets into another room, and he realizes he's forgotten something in another room. He's got to go back, and he pauses and he says, thank you for that moment, even the tricky moments. After he got done telling that story, it just hit me that he has found his way into having a spirituality that is so portable that it is carried with him into his experiences of life. And just how important that is for all of us to somehow explore. So today you've heard, I think, maybe some of the reasons why this could be something to foster for yourself. Through the life of Jesus and the way in which he has a spirituality of the street, right? That every footstep manifests something holy and sacred in his journey along the way. And the way in which his followers struggle to see that as well, to kind of break from old patterns of the way in which they thought about God and see God at work in the neighbor, in the other, even in the enemy, in moments of danger, in moments of frustration or anxiety, to see that they have this capacity to tap into God's gracious gift of life, no matter where they find themselves. That we see in the life of Jesus, we see it in the life of Buddha, and we see it in the lives of each other and some of our great spiritual masters throughout time and place. I think there was a little bit of that, even I'm out of the Lutheran tradition. I think there's a little bit of that in Luther's theology as well. It's not as thick, but it's definitely there. Um, this thinking about even the Eucharist, the bread and the wine, is that God is truly present for us in the commonness of daily bread, the bread that is shared. That we begin to see God in our soup at lunch, as well as seeing God in the sacred moments of ritualized religion in the sanctuary. How do we do that? Um, Luther was one who, in a sense, broke the pattern in the Catholic Church of being a celibate monk and got married and had a bunch of kids, because I think Luther saw that, hey, God is woven, the experience of God is woven into even the family life, right? The life that we share together, the daily. God is there. Why is portability important? That's what I want to kind of finish up with. And then I have a poem to read at the end, which I think is a beautiful poem that reminds us of this. Why is this portability so important for us in these days? I think for a couple of reasons. Number one, the future that we're going to be exploring together as a planet and as a nation seems a little unclear. Not quite sure what it's all going to look like with all the challenges and opportunities that we're facing. And so having capacity to enter into those, with a robust connection to your spirituality, I think is going to be totally important. And that you can engage those things with a sense of confidence and almost like patterns that you've gotten used to that are present for you is just super important, I think, in a changing environment. So that's number one. I think just gives us capacity and that kind of entrepreneurial spirit that Friedman's predicting to be able to always be tethered to the gift of the sacred for us and make sure that that's manifested or being experienced in every moment. That's one. The second one is I'm convinced that, while we all love our sacred texts, they also have a way of kind of being like a gilded cage in which we place our ideas of the holy or the sacred or God or life. We end up, kind of placing them inside of that construct, and then they're sort of stuck there. And they're not truly alive in that cage. They're trapped in that cage, whether it be trapped in history, trapped in dogmatic language. And sometimes we do that when we, see God only in our old favorite hymns or our old favorite liturgies or our own sacred texts. But we know that if we trust that God or the sacred or life is a living, vibrant conversation partner in life, then that force, that energy is always with us in the now, in the present moment, and is adapting all the time to our circumstances, our experiences, our age, our life experience, our collective experience, that there's a vibrancy to the holy that's possible outside of the gilded cage. It kind of reminds me of that Maya Angelou poem, right? I know why the caged bird sings. That it is the bird in the cage, in a sense, that longs for its freedom to operate and sing its song in relationship inside the vibrancy of life that was meant to hold it, not in the gilded cage in which it's trapped. And the energy of that poem is much like what I'm talking about, this idea of sort of setting your ideas of God free from the gilded cage so that it's more fluid and porous and able to respond to the situations that you're experiencing. And it might mean that religion looks a little bit different on the other side, right? It might be this constant capacity to hear God or the sacred in the literal conversations or experiences that we're having in the day, in the moment, and that we come together to celebrate that. I don't know. That might be what it looks like. But I do believe this capacity for portability of knowing that God rests um, in your little life experience will be some early and creative steps towards that. Finally, I guess my challenge before we close today is maybe for you as you move forward into this week and in the weeks ahead, um, time to think about what are the ways in which you have access to the Spirit that's present for you in each and every moment. You know, what might that look like for you? And could you kind of play with that and begin to trust it a little bit more? I remember years ago, I'm always trying to figure out weird ways to do this, but years ago I had it, you know, since I'm a clergy person, I used to have to dress up in robes on a Sunday morning. And I had this big white robe that I would wear and then would talk to the people. And the white robe was a symbol, you know, it's like a sign that I, at the time, in my role as a clergy person, manifested something pure and holy. And so one Sunday, I took one of my robes and I cut it up into little pieces. And I basically handed it out to everybody and said, put this in your wallet. And, you know, in a sense, I was struggling way back then to think about, let your connection to the sacred be portable for you. I put it in their wallet intentionally because I think that the way you engage in economic activity should also reflect your spiritual life, but that's a whole other story. But it's sort of in line with this, right? How do you figure out ways in which there is a nowness to your spirituality that is always there for you? Right? That old line, I am with you always, you know, even to the end of the age. That's the vibrancy we want to tap into as faithful people, I think, in this time. So as you move forward, my challenge to you is maybe for a time, let the street, the daily walk, be your sanctuary. Let the community itself that you're engaged in, whether it be a digital community or the small communities that you engage in, let those places be your communion. Let the secular be the location in which you experience the sacred. Let the mundane be that which is profound. And let every moment that you have be an eternal moment for you. So that all the wonder and the wisdom and the mystery of the spirituality that we experience is available to you in every moment, every moment of your life. Waking, asleep, active, quiet. Can you find your way to a portability of spirituality? Amen. All right. Well, thanks for bearing with me in this kind of conversation this morning. I will tell you the same thing I told the 3 people who got together to talk this week. You know, when I do these, it's not like I know the answers. I'm trying to give you the answers. What I try to do with you on a Sunday morning or whenever you log on is just simply explore together what might be possible. Right? Let's be spiritual entrepreneurs. Let's have a conversation that invites exploration, possibility, new edges to reveal themselves. How important that is for us, I think, in our time. Let me close by reading you some of the lyrics to a song that was written. It was written, in a sense, in a connection with a liturgy that was put together for Julian of Norwich, who, like our story today, was able to find the sacred in the smallest of things. Julian of Norwich had experienced almost near-death experience, and then had these visions. She was a mystic, and she kind of began to see like everything that was sacred in everything else, right? So she could see through the chestnut to see the heart of God's love there, or God's beating heart there. And she had this sort of mystical capacity. And out from that vision comes this song by Carrie Newcomer called Holy as a Day is Spent. Holy as a Day is Spent. And why don't you just take a moment to kind of hear some of these lyrics and maybe let it be inspiration for you as you think about how to move forward with a portable faith. Holy is the dish and drain, the soap and sink, the cup and plate, and the warm wool socks, the cold white tile, shower heads, and good dry towels. The frying eggs, they sound like psalms. With bits of salt measured in my palm, it's all a part of a sacrament as holy as a day is spent. Holy is the busy street, the cars that boom with passion's beat, and the checkout girl counting change, and hands that shook my hands today. And hymns of geese fly overhead and spread their wings like their parents did, and that blessed dog that runs in her sleep to chase some wild, elusive thing. Holy is the familiar room and the quiet moments in the afternoon. Folding sheets like folding hands to pray as only laundry can. I'm letting go of all my fear, like autumn leaves of earth and air, for summer come and summer went, as holy as a day is spent. Holy is the place I stand, to give whatever small good I can, the empty page, the open book, redemption everywhere I look. Unknowingly, we slow our pace in the shadow of this unexpected grace. Isn't that beautiful? A reminder to all of us to find in each footstep along the way a sense of the sacred's heart beating within our own. May that journey be yours today and in every moment of your life. Amen. All right. That's twice I said amen, so we must really be done. A couple of announcements today. First, thanks, of course, for being a part of this. Thanks, of course, for your ongoing support to our little community, our Savior's Lutheran Church, and what we now know as Creekside Commons, and these efforts at connecting with you digitally through the week, whether you're sending in checks or doing EFT or donating here and there. We're also working on putting a donate button right on this Facebook page so you can do that directly. It's a huge support to us as we try to navigate this time together. So another shout out and thanks for all of your generosity along the way. Next week, a special time together. Normally we would have our Dia de los Muertos, All Souls kind of Sunday together. And we're going to do that, but we're going to do it in this platform next week. So we'll honor together those that we have lost over the last year in particular, and those that we have lost to us throughout our life, and even in particular now, given the horrific loss of those across the planet due to the pandemic, a way to pause and honor their lives as well. So that'll happen next Sunday as you tune in. We'll just spend some time with the language out from the wisdom of the Dia de los Muertos tradition, which is just such a beautiful way to call us back into connection with all of the spirits that continue to percolate in our lives despite their loss. It is a beautiful celebration, one we'll try to capture a little bit in this format next week. Also, just a side note, as we get ready for a public safety power shutoff here in our area, the church parking lot, the northern parking lot, is a community resource center. So if you are running into some trouble powering up your devices or whatever you need during this power shutoff, you can just drive to church, and the upper parking lot is all set up with PG&E representatives to be supportive during this transition. So feel free to do that if you need it. And thanks to Rich for dealing with PG&E to set all that up. It's great. And then, of course, with the election coming up, just be patient with our nation, right? This is like crazy time. So let's all take a deep breath and find joy even in the complexities of an election cycle, and that's all that's going on in our politics. Um, that's the challenge here is to show up and be spiritual people, even in the complicated context that we find ourselves in. All right, finally, Martin has posted another one of his songs. I think it's "A Mighty Fortress Is Our God," a toss back to the great Lutheran hymn, kind of a reminder of how do we build a fortress that holds who we imagine to be sacred for us, that is able to hold the Spirit of God for us. I'll tell you, the fortress is in the palm of your hands. All right? Have a great week, and I look forward to connecting with you next week.